Welcome, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Why don't you kind of nod your heads if you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. I'm Pastor Dan, and it's clearly an honor for me to be a part of this celebration of life for Lou Smith. Before you all arrived, it was just and the entire Smith family gathered together to begin this journey together. And it was just such a heartwarming moment to see everybody gathering, and of course, all of you who've gathered here today. This is not always an easy thing to do, to come together and to spend some time paying attention to each other as we all gather together in this space, and particularly today, to hold the life of Lewis in our heart and soul as deeply as we can today, and to hold the family today, and to have deep appreciation, particularly for Barbara and Tyler and Brett and all the kids who put together this moment for us, to simply pause and to soften our souls and our pace a little bit, so that we can allow the wonder of Lou's life to settle in with us again this day. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Today, the family has designed a service where I'll provide some reflections as to my experience of Lou as Deacon Lou. So I'm excited to share a few thoughts about good old Deacon Lou. And then, of course, there'll be a presentation of some of the stories that have been so important to you all, family and friends, that they'll share with you today as well. And then we have a slideshow of Lou's life that you'll be able to experience. And I'll invite you during that slideshow to take some time and think about all the memories you have of Lou, and what are the kind of the photographs that you hold in your own memory as you experience life with Lou. So we'll do that together. And then towards the end, Lou decided to choose the 23rd Psalm for today. And I've taken that Psalm and made that sort of a commendation piece, a piece that we use together to give Lou into the embrace of the sacred today. And after that's done, we'll have a piece of music. And if there is time, we will begin to invite you, if you'd like, to share some of your stories as well. So that's how it's going to unfold today. Again, thank you for being a part of this. And I'm excited to spend some time with you today. I will admit, probably like all of you, I have been thinking about Lou all week long. I know that this time together was coming up. And probably like a lot of you too, I did not want to, and I still don't want to, give myself to the reality that Lou has slipped away from us. You know, he was such a brother to me for the period of time he was connected to our congregation through his seminary years and as a deacon, that I just really hurt when I think about not being able to sit down and spend time with Lou and gain some of his wisdom and hear some of his insights and tell him the stories of my life, and to hear him tell me the stories of his kids and his grandkids and how proud he is of all of them. All of that wonderful stuff that happened between me and Lou, it happened with you and Lou as well. It's hard to let it go. And so today, kind of grudgingly, I'm going to softly release Lou a little bit into the great gift of life that holds us all. But I do so, like you, you know, with a heart that's heavy and sad for the loss. Clearly, I know the family experiences that loss as well. And so we hold them close today as well as we move through this time together. When Barbara reached out to me, and I don't know if Barbara reached out to me if it was Lou's requirement that I say a few words about Lou as Deacon Lou, but that's what I want to do to get us started today. In the Christian tradition, and not everybody obviously in this call today is part of that Christian tradition, but in that tradition, there's a line that I think many people think that is connected to Jesus when he taught in parables. And parables are like Buddhist koans, you know, they're sort of these tricky metaphorical aphorisms, short and terse, and they're designed to help you think about the world differently. And connected to a lot of those parables, Jesus would often say, you know, those who have eyes to see or ears to hear, let them see, let them hear. it wasn't an invitation to kind of physically seeing or hearing. It was rather a deeper invitation to truly see the world in a different way, right? To see beyond life sometimes as it presents itself, to be able to have a vision for where we might be going as individuals or as a collective body. Lou was one of those people for me. I don't know about for you, but he was someone who could see, he could see off into the distance something that he longed for, possibly for himself, for his family, for church communities, for society. His long work in Beyond War was a clear indicator of that. Lou was someone who had eyes to see beyond what is, and then to work towards that. And I cherished that aspect of Lou. I'll never forget the first time I met them. He came here to church, here into this space, and he wanted to meet together with all the clergy who were part of our congregational life at the time. And nobody ever asks to meet with all of us at once. So I thought, who is this guy who wants to meet with us all? And he brought along with him two of his good friends, Ted and Sandy Mougeot. And I'll never forget that moment, right? We gathered in the library at the moment, and Sandy lit a candle and put it on the table. We all sat in silence. I even think we held hands for a moment. And I thought, my goodness, what is coming our way? I was a little bit nervous. I was nervous because our congregation was going through a lot of conflict, because we were trying to live into a new vision of what church could be. But in that conversation, I quickly knew that Lou was going to be someone who had a vision of what congregational life might be like, a sense of what the future might hold for us as spiritual people that he wanted to work for, that he wanted to support the three clergy people at the time to try to live into as well, and deeply to support me along the way as well. And so Lou became for me this great mentor, someone who would always have some thoughtful advice about how to navigate the frontier into actually manifesting a different kind of future, to see beyond what is into what might be. And that was he not only had the passion and the vision for that he kept in this sort of deep and beautiful place, but he always had a strategy. In fact, I could always picture him when he was sitting down with me. I would always picture him like doing Tai Chi and allowing all this kind of imaginary work to brew inside and then manifest through his expression of body in the world. And then he wanted me to go along for the ride with him. I knew that was a part of Lou's journey. And so it was that Lou decided, as many of you know, to then go to seminary and actually become a deacon in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. And I remember walking with him through that journey to become a deacon, and having his own moments of little anxiety when he wrote he had to write these papers, these approval papers along the way. And those of us who do it are always nervous that we're going to write something, and if we really tell people what we think, they're going to think we're a heretic, right? And I remember Lou saying, would you read this? Just make sure that it gets through. Okay. And he was a wee bit of a heretic, frankly. And he did slide through because he was driven by a vision of church that was beyond where the institution was. And then he used his role as deacon, both in local congregation life, mine in particular, I'm sure others, in our synodical life, which is a connection to about 120 churches in our synod. He used his role as deacon to help advocate for the kind of vision he had for the future. I love that about Lou. Not only did he have a vision, but he had a methodology, one that I still have yet to figure out, right? He had this way to enter into conversation with people that always honored where they were. I mean, seriously honored where they were. And if you've had a conversation with Lou, you know that he honored where you're at in your life's journey, and he paid attention to it. And that was his first entry point into then a further conversation about how to begin to open up discoveries and realizations that might help you and Lou and whoever else is in the room kind of together, not create a win and lose situation, but to find some common ground that holds this hope for the future. In many ways, Lou reminds me of Arundhati Roy, the great Indian philosopher who wrote, you know, there is a new world that's possible. It's coming. And sometimes on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. That was the spirit of Lou. It was a kind of advocacy for a future that I wanted to be a part of. And I worked hard alongside of Lou to make that a reality in the congregation I serve. And I know Lou advocated for that as a deacon throughout all of his work that he did with churches. Finally, the last notes that Lou sent me before he passed away, and I think he sent them to me because he was like, this is where I'm at right now. And when I first got them, I thought, oh, great, we'll work on this project together. And then I found out that he was really ill, and this was sort of his last correspondence with me. But I found it interesting that there were two stories that Lou referenced that he thought were good places to start. The one was the birth story. And he was pushing in his writings to say, look, let's not think of the birth story of Jesus, this virgin birth, as a biological event, but an invitation to birthing, right? That we're all invited to. Can we all birth the gift of life together? He wanted to move that story into the heartbeat of our common life in a way that gave it a capacity to be metaphor and spark the imagination. And the other one was the cosmic story, that Lou saw the cosmic story not as a story of our origins, like the birth narrative story is not a story of origins, it's a story of invitation into the birthing capacity of nature itself. These two birthing places was where I think Lou thought the journey can begin for so many people. For me, and probably for you, Lou gave himself to those sorts of birthing moments in his own way, in his way in which he encouraged me and probably you along life's journey, in his capacity to see that there's more there than meets the eye. All of that was part of Lou Smith that I will forever cherish and try to live out as best I can as I continue my work as well. One last thing that I remember about Lou, and this is sort of eerie, and maybe you experience this too, because sometimes when Lou would look at me with all my frustration and anger and anxiety that it's never going to work out, Lou saw in me sometimes more than I could see myself. And it was in those moments that I realized there was a way about Lou to even see in probably each of you more than meets the eye, to hope and long for a future for you, for a vision for your life. My guess is that was part of the way in which he manifested relationship as well. For me, whether it be beyond war or beyond the way religious institutions manifest themselves, or even beyond what my personal place is here and now, Lou was always one who encouraged institutions and individuals, you and probably me, to move more fully into who we can be. Today, we have a lot of stories to share with you. Stories from family and friends that will connect you again to the vibrant life of Lou. And as you hear these stories told today, in the video presentation that you're about to see, let the stories remind you of how Lou's life was connected so deeply to your own. What were the gifts that Lou brought to your relationship that made it so vibrant and alive and full of joy and wonder? Let that sink in a little bit today, as together we hear stories of the life of Lou Smith.
My name is Dailyn, and Lou was my uncle. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about my fondest memories together from when I was a child until recently. We're walking in the redwood forest. I didn't grow up near redwood trees, so that was really pretty magical on its own. But I always enjoyed our silent companionship together in those times, and then later by the river in Sacramento with other beautiful trees. But I felt like reading a poem that I think encapsulates that sentiment, and it's called A Walk by Rainer Maria Rilke. My eyes already touch the sunny hill, going far beyond the road I have begun. so we are grasped by what we cannot grasp. It has an inner light even from a distance, and changes us, even if we do not reach it, into something else, which hardly sensing it, we already are. A gesture waves us on, answering our own wave, but what we feel is the wind in our faces.
Hello, I'm Gary Snyder. I've known Lou since the spring of 1961 when I joined the fraternity of which he became president. My fondest memory is of the terrible meal he served us in the fall in our induction ceremony, probably designed to make us appreciate the cooking of our normal chef, Ruby. Lou's nickname was Biz because his goal was to go to business school, a goal he achieved along with many other goals. We both joined Creative Initiative Foundation in the early 1970s, and that was a foundation that was set up for advancing both spiritual growth and social issues by Harry and Amelia Rathman, who had been our faculty advisors at our fraternity. By then, Lou and our wives, Carolyn and Barbara, we had two sons each of approximately the same ages, and Lou loved the outdoors. And some of my favorite memories are us going on a backpacking trip together as families in Mendocino along the coast, and also doing a bike riding trip in Napa Valley. Later, after our sons had left home, we went to a place near Bear Valley in the Sierras called Asa Lake, which was fed by a natural spring. And in the July of 2014, Carol and I took Lou and Barbara to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where Lou was just amazed by the grandeur of the Grand Tetons. And he also had the opportunity to drive our rental car through a buffalo herd. One of our favorite things we did together was going to the big game, which is the annual Cal-Stanford football game. We went to many games, and most of them were close games with surprise endings. In fact, after one, when Cal unexpectedly won, I remember Lou smashing his portable radio because he was so upset. Lou and I were both members of a poker group as well as a men's club group. And Lou especially enjoyed the men's group because his contributions of a spiritual nature were really special to all of us. And he was also pretty good at poker. He was able to maintain a poker face that ended up costing me a lot of money. Together, Lou and I had a lot of adventures, and I'm going to miss him a lot.
Hi, I'm Jeri Brown, and I was fortunate enough to join the family when I married David Brown and became Barbara and Lou's sister-in-law. But I met Lou much before that. I was a high school student, and my brother was in school at Stanford and joined the Theta Chi fraternity, and he invited me to come and visit and spend the weekend. And that's when I met Lou, who was the president of the fraternity, the Theta Chi fraternity. And I even got to stay in the Theta Chi house and went to my first beer party, beer keg party, and listened to Ray Charles and fell in love with that music, and went to my first bead store and started my bead collection, and and just had a fun time. And Lou was always so kind to me and welcoming. And also, whenever we got together and visited, I always had a special connection with Lou because of my brother Jimmy, and we would share stories about him. And when my brother died way too young, when he was 40, Lou called to talk to me about him, and we continued over the years to share memories and keep Jimmy alive. And I love Lou very much and miss him, and I'll always be ready to share stories about Lou the way he shared them about my brother Jimmy. Thank you.
My name's David Brown. I'm Lou's brother-in-law. The first time I met Lou, I was 17 years old and still in high school. I was happy for Barbara corralling such a good-looking guy and a very intelligent person to boot. Highly intelligent, that was my overriding perception of Lou, as well as being friendly and an upstanding guy. I went up to Stanford a few times and played flag football with his fraternity brothers, one of which years later would become another brother-in-law by a total coincidence. I met his sister years later and 500 miles away in San Diego. One of my most special times was at Bar and Lou's wedding. Recently, I looked back at their wedding pictures and they both look like professional models. In the early years, Lou and I shared some adventures together. We hunted pheasant on a number of occasions until we both lost our taste for killing things. I went backpacking with Lou on a few trips to the Sierras, and one time Barbara joined us. That was the time we were harassed by a bear in the middle of the night. One time Lou and I took a canoe trip on the Russian River. That was the time Lou showed me his spunky side. As we were approaching a rapid, we could see some obviously drunk college-age boys waiting at the bottom of the rapid with the intention of messing with our canoe. Sure enough, they flipped us as we went past. Breaking the surface from being underwater, Lou emerged as someone I had never seen before. I held onto my paddle and kept one of the drunks at bay by threatening to clobber him with it. In the meantime, Lou is throttling the other joker, making him pay for his indiscretion. It was a beautiful thing to see. In the years past, Lou and I were able on different occasions to help each other navigate through some difficult times. I was blessed to have such a fine friend to lean on me and in turn lean on him. I've always looked up to Lou and admired him greatly. He will be missed.
Good afternoon. The photos you were seeing only partially reflect a friendship spanning 6 decades. It all began as classmates and fraternity brothers and continued after graduation when we joined the same Air National Guard unit. We took part in each other's weddings, and the friendship evolved and blossomed as couples. We played tennis, enjoyed the splendors of Yosemite. We cheered the few ups and endured the many downs of Stanford football. Karen and I watched a beautiful couple raise 2 fine boys. We were present at the young men's weddings and later on saw the transformation of our favorite couple to caring grandparents. Living at opposite ends of the state, we still managed to get together often, picking up the conversation as if it had only been days since the last gathering. Visits to the north were highlighted by fine dining in the city and surrounds, along with great food and wines of Napa. In the south, the Hollywood Bowl, the Simon and Getty Museums, more fine restaurants, not to mention the Rose Parade and Stanford's occasional appearance at the Rose Bowl. Lou was such a good friend. He was not offended by my devotion to a soft bed and hot shower. So sadly, we missed out on his passion for river rafting. At the same time, he arranged and played golf on our visits, even though the sport was not high on his list of favorites. promising to the very end to take it up seriously soon. Lou was always up for a discussion and interested in hearing your point of view. Most memorable, I think, were the frequent digressions he made when telling a story in his quiet, earnest James Stewart style, and that sly grin when urged to get on with it. Thanks, Lou, for those great memories.
Bill and Vicki here at Coronado Beach, where Lou loved to dip his toes into the water. Lou requested that this poem by William Randolph Hearst be read at the celebration of his life, and we are honored to make that happen.
The Song of the River. The snow melts on the mountain, and the water runs down to the spring. And the spring, in a turbulent fountain, with a song of youth to sing, runs down to the riotous river. And the river flows to the sea. And the water again goes back in rain to the hills where it used to be. And I wonder if life's deep mystery isn't much like the rain and the snow, returning through all eternity to the places it used to know. For life was born on the lofty heights, and flows in a laughing stream to the river below, whose onward flow ends in a peaceful dream. And so at last, when our life has passed, and the river has run its course, then it again goes back, o'er the self-same track, to the mountain which was its source. So why prize life, or why fear death, or dread what is to be? The river ran its allotted span, till it reached the silent sea. Then the water harked back to the mountaintop, to begin its course once more. So we shall run, the course begun, till we reach the silent shore. Then revisit earth in a pure rebirth from the heart of the virgin snow. So don't ask why we live or die, or whither, or when we go, or wonder about the mysteries that only God may know.
Uncle Lou gave me a book called Breathe, You Are Alive. Breathe and you know that you are alive. Breathe and you know that all is helping you. Breathe and you know that you are the world. Breathe and you know that the flower is breathing too. Breathe for yourself and you breathe for the world. Breathe in compassion and breathe out joy. Breathe and be one with the air that you breathe. Breathe and be one with the river that flows. Breathe and be one with the earth that you tread. Breathe and be one with the fire that glows. Breathe and you break the thought of birth and death. Breathe and you see that impermanence is life. Breathe for your joy to be steady and calm. Breathe for your sorrow to flow away. Breathe to renew every cell in your blood. Breathe to renew the depths of consciousness. Breathe and you dwell in the here and now. Breathe and all you touch is new and real.
Hi, I'm Maddie, and Papa Lou was my grandpa, and he was one of my biggest supporters growing up and to this day. I can feel him smiling down on me and my accomplishments all the time, and he seriously set the bar for being the best grandfather and cheerleader. His kind heart and gestures have always humbled me, and his generosity was almost unfathomable. I miss him dearly, seeing his smile and giving his high fives. And now that I'm at school in Monterey, I am reminded of the nickname he gave to me when we went on a trip to Hawaii when I was a kid, my little ocean girl, because I wanted to swim all the time. So every time I go to the beach here, I think of that and I think of him, and I miss him so much, and I'll forever treasure the time I spent with him, and he will always be with me. I love you, Papa Lou, and your reminders to keep my head high.
Hello, I'm Logan Smith, and Papa Lou was my grandpa. And one of my fondest memories of Papa Lou was him doing his Tai Chi in the backyard of the house in Moraga. The way he did his poses reminded me of how some of our conversations would go. They were very basic topics with very deep and meaningful concepts. These topics would range anywhere from outer space to how well the Giants are doing that season. And these conversations fascinated me, but it was the amount of attention he would give people, whether it be in the highs or the lows. The dedication, effort that he gave people would allow him to view the world from a different perspective. And this is something that I've learned from him and strive to get better at. His gentle smile and curious thoughts will never cease to exist, and the energy from Papa Lou will continue to grow. I miss you every day, Papa Lou, and am very thankful for the wisdom and moments we got to spend together.
I'm Cicely Smith, I'm Lou's niece, and I'm reading this on behalf of myself and my husband, Kevin Won. It's called Why We Named Our Son After You, Uncle Lou, and it's written to Uncle Lou. When I found out 3 years ago when I was pregnant that it was going to be a boy, one of my first thoughts was, I want to name him after Uncle Lou. I had always wanted to find a way to show you how much you meant to me, and this seemed like a perfect way to be able to keep the name Lewis going in our family, the Smith family. I remember fondly the day that Kevin and I called you and Aunt Barbara to let you know that we were going to name Hewitt's middle name after you, and how we wanted our son to follow in your lineage. The text you sent me after he was born said, quote, "Congratulations again to you and Kevin. I worried for 54 hours and tears came to my eyes when I finally saw the wonderful picture of Hewitt Lewis Won. Love, Lou." You follow that up with about 10 heart emojis. That's just an example of what a sweet and caring man that you were. I wanted to honor you in this way because you gave me the biggest lifetime gift of your love, attention, and support. You really stepped up your role as uncle to me, starting when I was in college and continuing ever since then, and I'm really thankful for the relationship that we had. And also the relationship you had with Kevin. Thank you for calling him every week during the past year of your life, during the pandemic. That's just one example of the wonderful, truly incredible human that you were. Kevin and I are hopeful that we'll be able to raise Hewitt to embody the characteristics in you that we loved and treasured. Patience, loyalty, integrity, and most of all, kindness. I'll always treasure the memory of my last day with you, Hewitt sitting on your lap, me asking him to tell you his full name, and him trying to say in his little voice, Hewitt Lewis Won. You laughed and said, "I like your emphasis on the word Lewis." I cannot say goodbye to you, Uncle Lou, only I love you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherri. I am Papa Lou used to always introduce me as, this is my daughter. She's married to my son Tyler, which always warmed my heart. Boy, the things I miss about Papa Lou are his big vibrant smiles, enthusiasm, his big eyes. If we were going to do something new or plan another adventure on the road or Hawaii, he was always game to explore and be up for the next big fun thing. And I really always appreciated Papa Lou's time, especially all the days I spent with him. We really had a fun connection. I guess we kind of had each other's back a little bit when, you know, he would need a little extra time to wash his hands or eat another little slice of apple or oatmeal, or if we were at a restaurant and he wanted to change his order, I'd give him a look like, "Get what you want, Papa Lou, you can change it." And we glance at each other with that nod of appreciation and gratitude for our little quirky things that we would do sometimes. But I appreciate everything he's ever done. for my family, all the time spent with Logan and Maddie, all those trips to Ohio, raising a beautiful son who I was lucky enough to marry, and you know, his worldly advice. I went to Papa Lou and sat with him a lot. I'm really grateful for those times, and he would give me advice and give me feedback, and then I would get the awesome Papa Lou text or phone call maybe an hour later saying, "That's just my 2 cents. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't want to intrude." And it would always just make me smile how much he cared and loved for everyone in his family, and really wanted to acknowledge that we had our own paths and our own lives, but he was always there for us. So Papa Lou, I miss you. I love you. I hope the road rises up to meet you. I hope the wind is always on your back. The sun is shining upon you every day. And I'll see you on the other side, Papa Lou. I love you.
Hello, my name is Tyler Smith, and I'm Lou's youngest son. And I want to thank everybody for being a part of this special celebration today. I just have a few words, and I've jotted them down here. The world has lost one of its gentlest, kindest, and most generous souls. Examples of these high character qualities abound, and I'm certain that many of you watching this will quickly conjure up your own supporting anecdotes and experiences. But I would like to share a few of my own because, well, he was my dad, and doing so seems to lessen the blow of his passing. For starters, he was pathologically honest, which suited his career choices as well as academic and spiritual pursuits just fine. But it made for some awkward moments in my youth, like when he insisted I pay Taco Bell for my free soda refill while my classmates snickered loudly from their booth. But the point was made, and the "don't take what you didn't earn" lesson was added to my file. That and "never pull a push broom" have stuck with me to this day and been frequently repeated myself. He taught me that his meditation and Tai Chi practices were the biggest contributors to his health and well-being. It took a long time for me to wrap my head around the idea that doing nothing for a little while has value. But he was absolutely right, and now I spread the same gospel. It seems so simple, but that is often where truth lies, and Dad had a keenness for those nuggets of wisdom. He had a way of communicating his penetrating insight that was fueled by a natural curiosity which led him down many a rabbit hole. He simply loved getting to the root of a problem, and he did indeed tackle many complicated problems, both interpersonal, spiritual, and professional. From creative initiative to Beyond War to his self-proclaimed life's work of moving toward one earth, one humanity, one spirit. For my part, he saved my bacon countless times, to the point that I'm almost embarrassed by how much help and guidance I received from him over the years. He jumped right in when his valuable skill set could help any organization he believed in. And mine was no different. And part of the magic was that he never denied anyone, nor did he ever really have a full account of how many people and projects he was propping up, because his humility prevented him from discussing it often. Only Mom really knew. He was just too present and humble to think much about it. And my goodness, what a work ethic. I can't tell you how many times he shuffled into my house with a stack of handwritten notes and some freshly sharpened pencils to wrap up some arcane accounting matter, oftentimes after everyone else had gone to bed. The man simply did not miss deadlines. But incredibly, nor did he miss the little incidental moments and miracles that make life worth living. He never shied away from fully engaging with a chance to connect, and oftentimes that was made clear by just showing up. He was also a man of good humor, but not in a silly or frivolous way. He was always quick to smile and brush off negative encounters with his boundless capacity for immediate and enduring forgiveness. He was a good sport about being endlessly teased about his legendary appetite and his affinity for massive jackets and wool hats. And despite a lifetime of honest effort, I never once beat him in tennis or chess. He simply wore me down until I gave away the game. My dad was not perfect, and his faults were always part of the charm and a reminder that perfect is not the goal, but that constant and consistent growth is. And to what end? This is where I believe he stuck the landing. Joy, wonder, interconnectedness, tolerance, and peace. This is what he lived, what made him so magnetic to anyone he crossed paths with, and what inspired us to be better ourselves. He somehow navigated this crazy world and fulfilled Ralph Waldo Emerson's timeless vision of true success by leaving the world a better place, having been in it himself. At the end, it was on his terms, and he was steadfast that he had lived his life to the fullest. He made it clear that he needed nothing more, despite my own nagging dread that I still wanted more of him in my life, as I think we all did. My dear friend Amy was offering me some much needed comfort shortly after he passed, having lost her own father recently as well. She said, "You know, it's really hard to lose an amazing dad, and yet you had an amazing dad to lose." And Papa Lou, for that I'm infinitely grateful and forever proud to be your son. I miss you every day.
When discussing how to celebrate my dad, the conversation turned from what to say to where to go. My dad was passionate about the natural world. He shared that with me, and I share that passion with my family. We returned to the Palisades Creek Trail in the Sierras, where Tyler and I took our last backpacking trip with my dad, and where Tracy and I took Grace on her first backpacking trip. This is how we celebrated my dad. We love you, Dad.
Hi, I'm Barbara Smith, and I was blessed to be Lou's wife for 58 years. And I have us here today at the American River in one of the spots that Lou and I especially love to visit. Almost every week we'd come down here and spend a lot of time enjoying nature and the river. So I wanted you to see that spot that meant so much to him. I was married to Lou for 58 years. As a fellow English major in college, we shared a love of words and books. A few of the many words that describe this wonderful man include kind, compassionate, understanding, patient, loving, thoughtful, disciplined, tenacious, courageous, persistent, collegial, generous, intelligent, and also sweet and handsome. Throughout his life, in his own quiet and kind way, he gave of himself to everyone he knew. He connected with people by listening, caring, and supporting, mentoring, helping, and generously sharing his many talents when needed. He treasured the relationships that he enjoyed with family near and far, with friends new and old, work colleagues, clients, his health providers, and fellow travelers on his spiritual journey. And even in the casual day-to-day encounters with people he met wherever he found himself, he was truly interested in learning about people and listening to their stories. He found that these relationships enriched his life immensely. The loving connection he had with his family knew no bounds. Each new addition to the family circle, including sons and spouses, in-laws, cousins, nieces, nephews, children, and grandchildren, all were embraced wholeheartedly.
As the years unfolded and he reached elder status, Lou was honored to lend his ear, his understanding, and his time to nurture all these precious relationships. Lou was blessed with a beautiful mind and a keen intellect. It led him to be a lifelong learner, seeking knowledge, answers, and wisdom. His huge collection of books on many, many subjects is a testament to his vast hunger to understand. I'm sure that if you spent any time in his company, you would also recognize that he had a gentle disposition, a positive attitude, a sense of joy and wonder, a loving and patient heart, an appreciation for the beauty of the natural world, and an affinity for the life of the spirit. He could be stubborn at times about things he felt were important, but he had a wonderful sense of humor that was often revealed through a witty remark, a twinkle in his eye, and his endearing crooked smile. Lou filled many roles in his 81 years of life with great dedication and purpose. He was son, brother, student, friend, husband, father, bonus dad, partner, advisor, brother-in-law, father-in-law, wingman, cousin, uncle, patient, deacon, and proud Papa Lou to his amazing grandchildren Logan, Maddie, and Grace. These connections had a profound influence on him, and judging by the messages the family has received since his passing, he had a great influence on those who knew him also. Lou left an amazing legacy of caring and kindness to guide us. Let us try to pay it forward.
Certainly for all of us who experience those stories today, they're also beautiful. I just almost found myself lost in the memories of Lou, listening to all of your stories and your deep, that deep connection you had with Lou in so many different ways. It's just so beautiful to listen to that today. So thank you for all those stories. And I know all of you have a story of Lou that you could probably share as well. And so, just one that I thought of, I forgot about Lou wearing those huge puffy jackets because he was cold all the time. And I have one of his jackets in my closet that's huge. And I thought, nah, I'm going to go put that on when I get home. I don't care how hot it is, just to have him give me a hug again. It's just too awesome. Anyway, we all have stories like that, right? Just story after story that go way back. And I want you to hold on to those stories today, in particular when you watch the slideshow of Lou's life. Because following the slideshow, we're going to give Lou into the care of this great life giver. And it's just important for you to find that story that connects you with Lou again, so that in some way you can just take one more step in kind of letting go of Lou, letting him go into this great gift of life that gave him to all of us. And at the same time, holding on to the stories that continue to connect you to him. So today we invite you to watch now a slideshow of Lou's life. And along the way, remember the various pictures that come up for you in this journey we share.
touches the valley, all the clouds are taught to fly. Thus our souls will leave this land most peacefully. Though our minds be filled with questions, in our hearts we'll understand when the river meets the sea.
Like a flower that has blossomed in the dry and barren sand, we are born and born again most gracefully. Thus the winds of time will take us with a sure and steady hand when the river meets the sea. Patience, my brothers, and patience, my son, in that sweet and final hour, truth and justice will be done.
Like a baby when it is sleeping in its loving mother's arms. What a newborn baby dreams is a mystery.
But his life will find a purpose, and in time he'll understand when the river meets the sea. When the river meets the almighty sea.
I know I speak for everybody here to the whole Smith family for sharing Lou's life with us like that. I mean, Barbara, particularly, your comments there by that river of life that flows its way into the great and mysterious and deep sea. And then to see Lou's life unfolding in all the seasons with all the relationships, it's totally a gift to all of us. So my deep appreciation for putting that together and letting us kind of relive our experience of Lou in such a wonderful way. Today, I'm going to close my remarks using the 23rd Psalm, which Lou wanted to use for this celebration of his life. And I rewrote this Psalm as a way to give Lou back into God's hands. It is a psalm from our tradition that reminds us how ever present the sacred is in all of our lives, and how that embrace not only holds us as we journey into every day, but is a commitment to hold us in some ways forever. And so today, as we give Lou back into the hands of the holy, I would just invite you to let a memory that you have of Lou just sit deep within. Maybe even close your eyes and let the way in which Lou chose this psalm be the way we begin to release him back into God's care. Even though I walk through the valley of death, I have no fear, for you, O God, are with me. With your rod and staff to shepherd me, I have found comfort throughout life's long and wondrous journey. For you prepare a banquet table before me. You anoint my head with oil of blessing. My cup has forever overflowed. Goodness, mercy, they have followed me all the days of my life, and my lifelong dwelling place has been housed within your wide embrace. You have been my shepherd, and I have not known want. You have led me to green pastures in which I have found my rest. You have led me to the waters still and deep. My soul restored again and again and again. Such has been my path. Your mysterious name, forever an echo I have heard along the way, calling me each and every step. With you, sisters and brothers, today, with heavy and grateful hearts, we return to the spirit of Lou, back into the song of life that has echoed within his life every step of the way. Rest, Deacon Lou Smith, within the wondrous melody that forever holds us all. Amen. And now, as you get ready to go this day, and maybe we'll have a closing song by the family, go with this blessing. For as Lou has been for all of us a blessing, a life gift manifested for each of us in so many different ways: friend, neighbor, coworker, deacon, relative, grandparent, dad, and husband. So we live into his legacy, giving ourselves as blessing to others and giving ourselves as blessing to the world in which we find ourselves. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of today. I was remembering as I was reading the last notes that Lou sent me as he was reflecting on kind of what he thought was the future of the life of the Spirit, right? That's one of the things he was so passionate about. And I was reading and just loving his insights and reflections. And I noticed that he ended his paper on a page that still had a lot of space on it. And he ended it with just 3 dots, as if his expectation was that I would pick up the ball and keep it rolling. For all of you today who have been connected to Lou's life, those 3 dots apply to all of us, right? He gave his gift in such a wondrous way to each of us, and then left those 3 dots so that all of us can kind of follow in his footsteps, sharing in the ways in which we know best, the way to embrace each other, embrace world, embrace future, that resonates with the heart of who we can be, so that we might see our lives a little differently, so that we might live them to their fullest. I know Lou would have it no other way. Thanks for being a part of this celebration of life. And blessings, of course, to the family gathered this day who knows that your love and care has surrounded them as well.